Hi, this is a video to demonstrate the MCP integration of IBM Bob with Ozgar AI. You currently see here the IDE of IBM Bob. On the left side you see a source code for an ERP application with display files, RPG files, and typical IBM application. In the right side you see the chat window of IBM Bob, and in the middle area the MCP settings. There is an active Ozgar connection, MCP connection, which is indicated by the green light. When I click on this connection, I see also the MCP tools that Ozgar provides. You can configure all these MCP tools individually with IBM Bob. Now, to get started, we can issue a command to test now the MCP integration, and we just do an introduction of IBM Bob in Ozgar, and by just stating introduction Bob and Ozgar. And when we do that, we see that IBM Bob says I'm a technical assistant, and then it states that I have access to Ozgar, which is an MCP server, and there are certain capabilities which are essentially reflected by the MCP tools. All right, now let's get started to ask more questions. We can ask a question, for example, to show main customer tables of the ERP application, and we can state to IBM Bob to use only Ozgar. So we can just simply say use Ozgar and then state some prompt. So we run this prompt to get the main customer tables, and what you can see here that there are MCP requests issued, and we get very quickly back the list of main customer tables and in the response. Now let's run something more complex, and I run now a prompt to generate functional areas for an application, and there's a prompt: provide an overview of functional areas with detailed information for this application. So in this prompt, I'm instructing IBM Bob to run only with Ozgar, and one time, and the second time only with IBM Bob. And then I use IBM Bob as a judge to compare the approaches, and you get then a nice comparison in the table. And below the table, then I also state to attach the outputs. You see this here: show first comparison table, and then all outputs in answer. So let's run this request, and we see MCP requests are executed, and there are also a few folders scanned and files scanned, and now let's look at the comparison table. So we see here there's the one column just for Ozgar and one column just for IBM Bob. When it comes to speed, Ozgar is very fast, and IBM Bob is a bit slower. Accuracy is very high and understands business context, and IBM Bob is medium, relies usually on naming patterns, naming of folders and file names, and depth is full descriptions and relationships, and as mentioned before, IBM Bob is more depends more on the actual folder structure and file names. Business context, there's rich business context, business descriptions, and IBM Bob has technical names only. Yeah, so these are the main callouts. Now, when we look at the actual outputs, we see that there are in the answer of Oscar, we see the names of the functional areas plus what every functional area entails with a brief description. And now looking at the answer from IBM Bob, you see this looks a lot more technical, and there are directories mentioned and for each and database files, and so there's it tries to infer from the folder structure and the names itself and the file names to what the functional areas actually are. Yeah, so when we look at the key differences, so there's a business understanding, I think, where Oscar stands out. And there are functional descriptions which are mostly inferred by names, simply from folder names and file names when with IBM Bob. And there are relationships included, and so overall the result quality is more business oriented or business ready, and IBM Bob is more technical focused, more for more low level. All right, then I want to try out another question that is more detailed and more narrow, and I ask for details of a certain program. And when so this is a program that is actually, I know this that this program is executed by database trigger. So this is a special type of trigger, and this so I ask here for details on the program SGL000TG, and I explicitly ask how it's executed. And again, I ask IBM Bob to do a comparison. So we see again there are MCP requests issued, and there will be also files scanned in a moment. Yeah, you can see here the scanning of the files. And so we can see here in terms of discovery speed, it's very fast with Oscar again, and it's a bit slower with IBM Bob. And so there is full business context in the answer, and IBM Bob is just inferring from the comments only. And the execution method shows that the database triggers, and this is not so or must not so immediately visible from the IBM Bob response. So there's the trigger detection. So Oscar lists 3 database triggers, and they're not found in files. The table relationships also mentioned in where the database triggers are used, and
this is something the user must look into the code when to find this information. So in Ozgar it's more explicit. And again, there's more business context. So this is usually always where Ozgar stands out, that it's the response is always more business level and less technical. And now let's look at the actual answer, right? So we see here, this is the output of Ozgar, and you see here that there is the program mentioned that we ask for details, and we get a nice description of the program, what the program is actually doing, and we see here how it's executed and released all the 3 database triggers, and with nice name of the database trigger, with with the event when it's executed and so on. And now when we look in IBM Bob, we get also information about the program, about the source file, and there's a technical analysis on how it's executed, and so there is some technical information what is not really I'm not fully aware how this fits to my question, but there is something about database triggers also. It mentions receive standard TP2 triggers, so I can read a bit into it, and then to get some clue that there are database triggers involved. And there's a main logic. The program handles 3 trigger actions: delete. So there's some actions to make database operations which actually trigger then the database triggers, right? So it's not directly visible, but implicitly you could figure out that at some point you make the same conclusion, that there must be database triggers that actually trigger a program. And how is it executed? It actually then mentions, inferred from the code, that there are database triggers involved, inferred from the code structure. And so it concludes there must be database triggers involved that trigger the program. So what is missing in IBM Bob's answer is the exact trigger names, the trigger timing, the trigger events. So there is this information is not so easily or readily available like we have seen before in Ozgar's case. Yeah, here one more time a good summary. So Ozgar finds all the 3 cases where a program is triggered, and there is a good, in terms of business purpose, a good explanations. Then there's in terms of answering the question is a bit faster than IBM Bob, and there are also table relationships that Ozgar shows, which are not directly, which users must read from the code essentially. So yeah, so these are the differences. All right, this is my demonstration for the MCP integration and the differences between Ozgar and IBM Bob. Thank you.